各位海内外的观众朋友，大家好。您还记得筱君台湾 Plus 在3年前创立的第一天吗？当时没有任何的资源，我自掏腰包、筚路蓝缕走过来，一心只想守住这个信念——台湾价值。过去3年来，一路走来，跌跌撞撞，非常的不容易。不过因为有您，我撑了下来。我们的观看次数已经达到了2亿5千万，订阅的人数也突破了47万人。这个数字代表每一个关心台湾、关心国际、关心真相的灵魂。也许您曾经在深夜看着筱君姐对着镜头娓娓道来，也许您也曾经在混乱的新闻洪流中，靠着我们的理性分析，找到了重新站起来的力量。不瞒您说，我一度想要放弃，不止一度，数度，因为这条路很艰辛、很漫长，而且是孤独的。一人难挑千金担，捉襟见肘会有的。因为没有政党澳元，没有政府资源，你一定很难想象，3年来就是这样子势单力薄，一路苦撑，只差没有倾家荡产。当然，很多人会问啊，那筱君姐你是怎么撑下来的？其实我的逻辑，我的哲学很简单，省一点，我们牙关一咬就过去了。所以每一次看到有人加入付费会员，我都会安慰自己，还是有人愿意跟你一起走下去的。筱君姐诚挚邀请您成为我们频道的付费会员，帮我们一起守住这个频道，不用很多，只要您愿意，不管是100元，请筱君姐每个月喝一杯咖啡，或者是3000元，一样，筱君姐都充满了感激。在台湾迈向民主的道路上，你我一起为子孙留下足迹。感谢您一路的相挺，也期待您加入我们的行列，点选加入会员，让真实的声音不被淹没。我们是为了您而存在的频道，你们也是让我继续存在的最大的支撑力道。有心就有力，我们永不放弃。
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, 各位女士先生，大家午安 ，Bonjour, good afternoon. It is a great privilege to introduce our keynote speaker for this afternoon session, the Honorable François de Rugy. He is an exceptional leader, a dedicated advocate for Taiwan-France relations, and a personal friend, un ami auquel je tiens beaucoup. During my 6 years serving as Taiwan's ambassador to France, I had the honor of witnessing firsthand François' outstanding leadership and his unwavering support for democratic values. As Ministre d'État, Minister of State, number 2 in the French government, he received then Minister Gong Mingxin of Taiwan's National Development Council, the first time a French Minister of State welcomed a Taiwanese ministerial level official in his ministry in France. A gesture that spoke volumes about his friendship and support for democratic Taiwan. François has also served as President of the National Assembly and multiple terms as a member of Parliament. This experience has made him a strong and respected voice for reform and progress, not only in France but also around the world, and very much here in Taiwan. As a friend of Taiwan, François has played a vital role in strengthening the partnership between our two nations. He first visited Taiwan in 2016 during his tenure as the Vice President of the National Assembly, marking the beginning of a deep and lasting engagement. In 2020, he became chairman of the National Assembly's France-Taiwan Parliamentary Friendship Group, working tirelessly to foster closer relations. Thanks to his leadership, in 2021, the French National Assembly overwhelmingly passed its first ever resolution supporting Taiwan's participation in international organizations. Later, That year, François returned to Taiwan to further solidify our ties. Today, François will draw on years of experience to analyze the current geopolitical landscape and explore strategies to address global challenges. I am confident that his insight will help us navigate the complexities ahead and advance our shared vision. And now, please join me in giving a warm welcome to the Honorable François de Rigy, a true fan of Team Taiwan and Team Freedom. François, sache que ton amitié compte beaucoup pour nous. Merci. 谢谢大家. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister Wu. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Honorable François de Rigy for his speech. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman of the Prospect Foundation, Dr. Tan Sun Chen, thank you for your invitation to speak on this凱達格蘭Forum. Dear Minister, Deputy Minister François Chi-Chung-Wu, thank you for your words. You are a friend for me. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to address you today in Taiwan at this international conference dedicated to geopolitical issues in the Indo-Pacific region. From the perspective of Europe and France, the challenges facing this region of the world have long seemed distant. They have long been underestimated. Today, world leaders have realized that part of the future of the balance of power between Asia and the West, between the powers of the 20th century and the rising powers of the 21st century, is being played out this region. I think this awareness is now shared by the peoples in Europe. From France's perspective, the balance in the region is now seen as strategic for global equilibrium. And maintaining the status quo for Taiwan is clearly perceived as very important for a geopolitical standpoint for the world and as a strategic issue, including from an economic standpoint for Europe. As far as France is concerned, I must say that this awareness has been accelerated by the work of François Chi-Chung-Wu, my friend, who was Taiwan's ambassador to France for 6 years and now Taiwan's Deputy Minister for European Affairs. I would like to point out that also I was President of the National Assembly in France and then Minister of the French Republic in the government of Prime Minister Edouard Philippe, appointed by President Emmanuel Macron. I'm speaking today in a personal capacity. I would like to share with you an analysis of the geostrategic challenges facing the Indo-Pacific region from the perspective of a French and European politician. In Europe, after the Second World War, we defended the free world alongside the United States of America against the Soviet Union and the countries of the communist bloc. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 90s, it seems that the free world had won. It was thought that liberal democracy would triumph everywhere, aided by growth created by the development of the market economy and global free trade. In addition to the collapse of the communist bloc, apartheid was ended in South Africa. Even the Israelis and Palestinians signed a peace agreement in Oslo in 1993. Some in Europe believed that the development of capitalism in China would gradually bring about change in the communist political regime. It was a period of hope in Europe, hope of peace, democracy, and liberty. However, the brutal crushing of student protests in Tiananmen Square in 1989 served as a warning about the nature of the regime that had no intention of allowing any political democratization. More broadly, since the early of the 2000s, new threats to world peace as well as to freedom and democracy have emerged. These threats had never been greater than they are today. While we are no longer in the 80s, when US President Ronald Reagan spoke of a battle between the axis of good and the axis of evil, we must nevertheless ask ourselves, should we not support each other? We democratic countries that are equally committed to political and economic freedoms. Opposing democracies today is an axis of powers that want to resist the spread of individual freedom and democracy and do not hesitate to use force not only against their own people but also against their neighbors. This is a hard lesson to be learned from Russia's military aggression against Ukraine in 2022. Ukraine has shown that it's possible to resist with international support, still insufficient today. But Russia is also demonstrating that it can wage a long war even with heavy economic and political sanctions. Russia can sustain this war because it has powerful allies such as China. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China recently issued a statement in which it affirmed for the first time that for China, Russia cannot lose the war in Ukraine. This is the first time there has been such a clear statement of an axis between China and Russia, including on the issue of the war in Ukraine. Russia and China may share a worldview based on imperialistic logic that seeks to rebuild itself by force, ignoring universal human rights values and international law. For these states, relations between states are based solely on power relations, and certain neighboring states are vassalized or made dependent. These states do not hesitate to use techniques of interference or destabilization in democracies, particularly through social media. This is regularly the case in France on the part of Russia, including in election campaigns. This is also being carried out on a large scale in Africa, in countries that had security agreements with France. These agreements have often been broken and replaced by agreements with Russia. China is also exerting strong pressure or financing movements aimed at weakening France in New Caledonia, for example. Beyond its axis with China, Russia can also rely on the support of Iran and North Korea. The BRICS countries have not broken off political and economic relations either. This creates serious concern for the near future. The logic of state will imposed by military force is once again taking precedence over international rules. More open conflicts are resuming between Israel and Palestine since the Hamas attack on October the 7th, 2023, between India and Pakistan recently, between Thailand and Cambodia just a few days ago. Added to this threat from non-democratic powers is a threat of radical political Islam, which has been developing for more than 30 years. From Afghanistan to West Africa, a political vision of fundamentalist Islam is developing and gaining power. Many countries have been weakened or destabilized. Regional powers such as Turkey have grown stronger. Iran has been weakened by Israeli and US bombing a few weeks ago, but the Islamic Republic of Iran is not completely isolated and has many resources and alliances, notably with Russia. Radical political Islam has supporters in many European countries that were hit hard by the attacks 10 years ago. The threat hasn't disappeared and remains strong. Radical political Islam shares with non-democratic powers a rejection of humanism, individual rights and freedoms, and democracy as a political system. The threat of the effects of global warming is also growing. While it's still possible to slow down climate change, it's no longer possible to escape it. This may destabilize some countries more than others due to the effects on agricultural production or certain form of housings. It weakens economies around the world. It's fueling tensions over mineral resources such as rare earth metals or uranium. Finally, threats to progress in free trade have become more apparent since the election of Donald Trump as President of the United States of America. By refusing to reciprocate trade and subsidizing its industry to dominate certain markets, China had already contributed to the imbalance in global trade. The number and scale of these threats have begun to prompt a response from Western powers, particularly with regard to the importance of military power. This will represent a growing cost in governments' budgets in the coming years, particularly in Europe. It's inevitable. This is also particularly true in the Indo-Pacific region. The Indo-Pacific region is at the heart of these challenges. There are strategic rivalries, military threats, crucial economic flows, and major environmental challenges. It can also be considered one of the regions of the world where the future of universal values such as democracy, individual freedoms, and the rule of law is at stake. If we consider these values to be universal, then they must be defended here as they are in Europe, America, and Africa. And we must defend the rule of law over force as well as free and fair economic exchange. The Indo-Pacific region has become a nerve center of international relations. It's home to more than half of the world's population, a growing share of global trade, and essential shipping lanes, including the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea, through which approximately 40% of the European Union foreign trade passes. For several years now, tensions have been growing in the region. This is fueled by China's rivalries between China and the United States, North Korea's nuclear ambition, and territorial disputes in the East and South China Seas. China is becoming increasingly aggressive and threatening towards Taiwan, with several statements by President Xi Jinping expressing more and more directly the prospect of a takeover of Taiwan by military force. This threat is taken very seriously here. This threat must be taken seriously by the rest of the world. It's increasingly perceived in Europe and particularly in France as one of the greatest threats of the coming years. The war launched by Russia against Ukraine shows that this is possible. France, as an Indo-Pacific power, thanks to its overseas territories as New Caledonia, French Polynesia, Wallis and Futuna, and the European Union as a major economic and normative actor, have a direct interest in promoting peace and stability in this region. These interests are not limited to maritime or economic security, but also include the defense of a rules-based international order in which democracy and freedoms occupy a central place. Since 2018, under the leadership of President Macron, France has developed an ambitious Indo-Pacific strategy based on 3 pillars: security and defense, economic cooperation, and multilateralism. For a very long time, French governments consider that France's strategic priorities lay in Europe, the Mediterranean Sea, the Middle East, and Africa. At a time when the stakes for global stability in the Indo-Pacific region have become clearer, France has seen its allies in Africa turn away and break their military agreements. The political and economic decline in France's influence in Africa has led France to turn more towards the Indo-Pacific region. It now has the opportunity to deploy more military resources there, from its overseas territories, but also by participating in joint actions with Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, and by developing its tie with India. President Macron has made official visits to India or Indonesia to sign major arms contracts. This year, the President of Indonesia was invited to the military parade of France National Day. In 2023, the guest of honor of the French President was the Prime Minister of India. As a maritime power, France plays a key role in defending freedom of navigation and overflight, fundamental principles of international law as defined by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. In partnership with allies, the regular deployments of the French Navy, including its aircraft carrier, nuclear submarines, and multi-mission frigates, sent a clear message. France is committed to preserving access to shared spaces and countering any attempt at coercion, particularly in areas of tension such as the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea. However, France is taking a nuanced approach, seeking to avoid a bloc mentality between China and the United States. This stance, described as a balancing power by President Macron, aims to limit the risks of escalation while firmly defending the principle of international law. But I have to say this position has been criticized in France. I believe it's urgent and more effective to strengthen cooperation, including military cooperation with powers that share the same values in the region, starting with Japan, South Korea, and Australia. France promotes inclusive multilateralism by supporting institutions such as the Associations of Southeast Asian Nations and the Pacific Islands Forum. These platforms help strengthen regional cooperation and promote common standards based on respect for human rights and democracy. In addition, France is involved in initiatives to combat disinformation and cyber attacks with strengthened democratic processes, particularly in Taiwan, where resilience to Chinese disinformation campaigns is a crucial issue. We know that French territories such as New Caledonia have been and will continue to be targets for China in the future. Although historically less present in the Indo-Pacific than France, the European Union adopted an Indo-Pacific strategy in 2021 that reflects a growing awareness of regional issues. This strategy emphasizes prosperity, sustainability, security, and governance with a clear commitment to democratic values. The European Union recognizes that stability in the Taiwan Strait is essential not only for regional security, but also for global economic prosperity. In 2022, the European Parliament adopted a resolution condemning any Chinese military aggression against Taiwan and affirming that the European Union and Taiwan are like-minded partners united by the values of freedom, democracy, and respect for human rights. This position marks a significant shift, with the European Union adopting a firmer tone in the face of Chinese attempts to unilaterally change the status quo. However, the European Union remains cautious, avoiding directly provoking China, with which it maintains crucial economic relations. This caution reflects differences between member states, with some favoring a more conciliatory approach toward Beijing, while others, such as the Baltic states and the Czech Republic, have taken a firmer stance in support of Taiwan. Many European Union member states, including France, often fear the economic retaliation that China could take. The European Union's Indo-Pacific strategy is part of its broader ambition for strategic autonomy. Recent geopolitical upheavals, notably the war in Ukraine and Donald Trump's return to the US presidency, have intensified the debate on the need for Europe to develop autonomous capabilities to defend its interests. In the Indo-Pacific, this translates into stronger partnerships with regional democracy such as Japan, Australia, and Taiwan, as well as greater participation in multilateral initiatives. This must be one of the priorities for cooperation between the EU member states and the United Kingdom, which has a long-standing presence in the Indo-Pacific with a region through the Commonwealth. This also raises the question of an alliance with the United States of America in this region. The bad memory for France of Australia's cancellation of its contract to purchase French submarines in favor of American submarines should not obscure the fact that our interests are linked and our vision are very similar. Taiwan occupies a central place in the geopolitical dynamics of the Indo-Pacific. As a pluralistic and consolidated democracy, Taiwan is a counter-model to the authoritarianism of the People's Republic of China. With an increasingly assertive national identity, 60% of Taiwanese consider themselves exclusively Taiwanese, according to a 2019 poll, and widespread rejection of the one country, two system model proposed by Beijing, Taiwan embodies the values of freedom and popular sovereignty. Taiwan is also a major economic and technological player, thanks in particular to its leaderships in the production of semiconductors, which are essential for the global economy. Its geostrategic position at the heart of the first island chain makes it a key point for restricting the People's Republic of China's access to the Pacific. The destabilization of Taiwan would have dramatic repercussions on global supply chains and regional security. This must be considered unacceptable by the countries of the European Union. This must be also affirmed jointly with the United Kingdom, the United States of America, and all countries in the region that share this vision. The People's Republic of China is stepping up its pressure on Taiwan through military means such as regular overflights of its airspace and invasion exercises, and through economic means such as trade and political restriction, seeking to maintain diplomatic isolation and deter any state from establishing political ties with Taiwan. Even in France, when we speak out on Taiwan or participate in high-level political meetings such as during the visit to France of former President Tsai, or for participation in this conference today, we are pressured by Chinese authorities not to participate. The French Ministry of Foreign Affairs also comes under pressure every time a Taiwanese government official visits France. This pressure and these threats from China pose a major risk to peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, a crucial passageway for global trade. France and the European Union, aware of these risks, call for constructive dialogue and the preservation of the status quo while supporting Taiwan's right to participate in multilateral forums. I myself had a resolution to this effect adopted by the French Parliament at the end of 2021. Defending democracy and freedoms in the Indo-Pacific is not only a moral imperative, but also a prerequisite for regional stability. Democracies such as Taiwan, Japan, Australia are natural partners for France and the European Union, sharing a common vision of rules-based international order. The question of greater cooperation between France and Taiwan on military equipment arises from the need to help Taiwan deter China from attacking it, or in the event of an attack to help it defend itself. France and the European Union must intensify their partnerships with Indo-Pacific democracies by supporting initiatives such as Taiwan's new southbound policy, which has doubled trade with Southeast Asian countries between 2016 and 2022. These partnerships must include cultural, educational, and technological exchanges in order to strengthen ties between civil societies and promote democratic values. I strongly believe in the importance of strengthening economic ties between Taiwan and France, and more broadly, the European Union. We must develop trade between our two regions, but also Taiwanese investment in Europe and European investment in Taiwan. This is what creates concrete solidarity when threats are more pressing. The fight against climate change and the best ways to adapt to it are also a race for further cooperation. Even though our energy systems are different, we can work together to develop competitive technologies for decarbonization. France, United Kingdom, United States, Japan, South Korea are among the world's leading countries in nuclear technology for electricity generation. There will be new technological developments in the nuclear technology to meet more diverse energy needs in order to avoid the use of coal in the future. We also have a shared duty and interest in not allowing China to dominate the global market for renewable energies, particularly solar panel and electric car batteries. Disinformation and cyber attacks, often orchestrated by authoritarian actors, pose a direct threat to democracies. Taiwan, in particular, is a prime target for Chinese disinformation campaigns. France and the European Union can play a key role by sharing their expertise on cybersecurity and combating disinformation, thereby strengthening the resilience of regional democracies. Finally, France and the European Union must advocate for greater inclusion of Taiwan in international organizations such as the World Health Organization and the World Trade Organization, where Taiwan has already demonstrated its commitment to open and rules-based trade. Such inclusion would strengthen Taiwan's legitimacy on the international stage and contribute to regional stability. Ladies and gentlemen, the Indo-Pacific region faces significant and unprecedented security challenges. In the face of geopolitical rivalries, environmental challenges and threats to democracy, France and the European Union must play their role in defending the free world. By promoting a multidimensional approach that combines security, economic cooperation, and multilateralism, we can contribute to peace and stability while defending the universal values of democracy and freedom. The history of the 20th century has taught us that there is no inevitability to the victory of authoritarian regimes. Taiwan, with its democratic model and resilience in the face of authoritarian pressure, is an essential partner in this endeavor. By strengthening our ties with Taiwan and other democracies in the region, supporting a rules-based international order, and avoiding the pitfall of bloc logic, we can build a future where peace and prosperity prevail. Let us be clear about the threats and act with determination to ensure that peace and freedom prevail. Thank you for your attention and long life for the free world.
今天的台湾不是在选择要不要脱离中国，而是我们应该去深刻去追问一个问题：我们真的曾经是中国的一部分吗？
从国际法角度，有史以来第一个真正拥有台湾全岛领土主权的国家是日本。
台湾不需要从哪里来独立出来，我们本来就不是哪一个国家的附属。我们需要的是什么？是完成那一段被冻结的历史。
旧金山合约让台澎领土主权不属于任何国家。 中日合约确定了这一件事情。
开罗宣言跟波茨坦公告里头似乎也被错误解读。
开罗宣言它是一个宣言，类似 MOU 嘛，
不具有法律效力，
没有效力，弄给人骗嘛。马英九经常就用开罗宣言说，依据开罗宣言，台湾是他的，那中国的，弄得给人骗。
国际法早就已经为我们留下一条通往尊严的道路，让台湾的人民真正做一次选择，为台湾写下未来的名字。各位海内外的观众朋友，大家好。您还记得筱君台湾 Plus 在3年前创立的第一天吗？当时没有任何的资源，我自掏腰包，筚路蓝缕走过来，一心只想守住这个信念——台湾价值。过去3年来，一路走来，跌跌撞撞，非常的不容易。不过因为有您，我撑了下来。我们的观看次数已经达到了2亿5千万。订阅的人数也突破了47万人，这个数字代表每一个关心台湾、关心国际、关心真相的灵魂。也许您曾经在深夜看着筱君姐对着镜头娓娓道来，也许您也曾经在混乱的新闻洪流中，靠着我们的理性分析，找到了重新站起来的力量。不瞒您说，我一度想要放弃。不止一度，数度，因为这条路很艰辛、很漫长，而且是孤独的。一人难挑千金担，捉襟见肘会有的，因为没有政党澳元，没有政府资源，你一定很难想象。3年来就是这样子势单力薄，一路苦撑，只差没有倾家荡产。当然，很多人会问啊，那筱君姐你是怎么撑下来的？其实我的逻辑，我的哲学很简单，省一点，我们牙关一咬就过去了。所以每一次看到有人加入付费会员，我都会安慰自己，还是有人愿意跟你一起走下去的。筱君姐诚挚邀请您成为我们频道的付费会员，帮我们一起守住这个频道，不用很多，只要您愿意，不管是100元，请筱君姐每个月喝一杯咖啡，或者是3000元，一样，筱君姐都充满了感激。在台湾迈向民主的道路上，你我一起为子孙留下足迹。感谢您一路的相挺，也期待您加入我们的行列，点选加入会员，让真实的声音不被淹没。我们是为了您而存在的频道，你们也是让我继续存在的最大的支撑力道。有心就有力，我们永不放弃。